Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for June 26, 2021, occurred around 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for two tropical systems to be forming in the Atlantic Basin and what could be a potential hurricane impact for parts of Mexico over the next several days. So jumping straight into everything, taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we have a couple of things to discuss. First of all, Hurricane Enrique over here in the Eastern Pacific Basin now officially a hurricane with maximum sustained winds getting close to about 95 miles per hour, getting close to that Category 2 threshold as it moves off towards the northwest here. This is already bringing impacts to parts of Mexico in terms of heavy rainfall and flooding, and the potential for maybe even a little bit of storm surge as you kind of get some of those onshore winds there. But irregardless, again, this is going to be posing a threat also for the portions of the Baja Peninsula over the next couple of days as this starts to weaken, but we'll be posing a threat there. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. And then we're also watching a new tropical disturbance here. This is part of an upper level disturbance right now sitting south of Bermuda. But as it drifts westward over the next couple of days, we'll be encountering a more favorable lower level profile in terms of moisture and the strong temperature gradient that could help to cause some instability as it moves westward over the Gulf Stream. And this will be moving west towards the United States, but is no significant concern at the moment. Upper level conditions just don't look to be as favorable for development, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. Non-tropical area of low pressure here in the Gulf of Mexico, but that could bring some heavy rainfall to portions of the western Gulf Coast here. And then we're also watching Invest Area 95L here. Now, 95L has been one of those very tricky situations to forecast over the past couple of days. On the one hand, you have a lot of dry, stable air to the north, which would typically go against development. On the other hand, you have a fairly decent moist profile right now, and this is starting to leave the monsoon trough and tighten up a little bit, which could be one of the reasons why we could be seeing development chances on the increase, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. Looking at Hurricane Enrique over here in the Eastern Pacific Basin, we notice that, again, we have a fairly well-established central dense overcast with basically the center located right about there. And we have a lot of convection that is kind of rotating onshore, so this could also bring some tornadoes to parts of the area. And of course, any orographic lift going over those higher mountainous terrain that could cause mudslides and flash flooding, the potential for more heavier concentrated areas of flooding to occur. Again, this will be moving off towards the west-northwest. And you can notice that there's dry, stable air over here with the stratiform precip that's over there. Or not the stratiform precip, but the stratiform clouds that are kind of over there, the stratocumulus. And this is really indicative of a very, the sea surface temperature profile is not as warm. You have more stable air in that part of the environment. And because of that, subsequently, you don't really have a lot of convection that can generate. So this really only has a small window, relatively small window to continue intensifying. But as it does so, this may reach major hurricane intensity as it moves off towards the west-northwest here. The latest forecast path here from the National Hurricane Center. Again, tropical storm warnings for most of the coastline here in Mexico with tropical storm watches over here. This is expected to be getting close to the Baja Peninsula by Wednesday into Thursday as it moves kind of very slowly. And this may actually end up making landfall here in the Baja Peninsula. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to really look forward, look forward in time that we could be seeing potential impacts down the road there to the Baja. And that's going to be one of the main concerns going over for the next couple of days. So for you folks there, if you live, in the Baja or are, vacationing down there near the Cabo San Lucas resort areas, be on alert for this because, even though this will be weakening, gusty winds, heavy rainfall, the potential for flash flooding, those could be very problematic things as this storm, as it moving off towards the west-northwest. So for you folks there, it's just important to kind of keep an eye on that. Focusing back on the Atlantic side, we have Invest Area 95L. And again, we talked about how 95L yesterday had development chances of only 10%. But now today, development chances have once again increased to 30% over the next 5 days. And again, this will be approaching the Lesser Antilles within the next 5 or 6 days or so. So for you folks there in the Lesser Antilles, this is just something to monitor. Now, we've all seen, where some of you may have seen the 12Z H-Wharf runs, not really expecting any, hurricane to come through there. But, a tropical wave at that. A healthy tropical wave could be coming through. Gusty winds, heavy rainfall, the potential for mudslides and flash flooding. You guys need the rain anywhere and anyway down there in that region. But this will bring sensible impacts to the region in terms of gusty winds, heavy rainfall, flooding potential. That is going to be there. So even though this may not be a hurricane, it probably won't be a hurricane. In fact, by the time it gets there, this will be something to watch down the road. Now, if we look here at the visible satellite imagery coming from tropicaltidbits.com, what we'll notice is that during the afternoon today, we've seen an increase in convection, especially here on the northern side, and we've got some shallow convection off towards the northwestern side. And what this is doing is, again, this is kind of moistening the environment just ever so slightly. And if we're able to get any one of those really deep convective bursts to persist over 12 or 24 hours, this certainly would have a feasible chance of becoming a tropical depression or storm, probably more so a tropical depression, as it moves off towards the west. And what we notice is that unlike the last couple of days, the system has been actually, or unlike some of the modeling forecasts have shown, this is actually sitting at just about 10 degrees north latitude, where some of the modeling from yesterday and days prior was sitting this closer to 11 and 12 degrees north way up here. And because of that, this actually has warmer sea surface temperatures to kind of feed off on. Even though the profile is rather marginal, which we'll look at here in a moment, we do notice that there is some convection. Now, if we take kind of a wider look here and kind of back this out, we can take a wider look at what's kind of going on across this area. And what we'll notice is that, again, we have this strata of cumulus that is kind of coming around the back side of this and wrapping in from the west and southwest. And what this indicates is that this is a more stable air mass out towards the west and northwest. Now, here's the Cabo Verde Islands. And notice that our system is, instead of being, somewhere near here, it's sitting down here and moving kind of off towards the west like that, expected to only gain very marginal latitude over the next couple of days. And that may, in fact, help development chances. And in fact, some of the recent modeling has started to indicate that development chances may start to be on the rise. But what we'll notice is that we do actually have a well-defined circulation. We have westerly winds here on the southern side here, and on the northern side we have easterly winds. So this is indeed a circulation that is probably getting close to tightening off as it leaves this monsoon trough that is located in here. And the faster this can leave the monsoon trough and the deeper convection it can develop, that is going to be the quicker that it ends up actually developing a closed circulation. And one of the positives here about leaving the monsoon trough is that it could close off a circulation easier than if it was stuck down here in the monsoon trough with just anomalous westerly winds and not much of an easterly component to the winds here at about 850 millibars. So this may actually help development chances increase, but on the flip side of it, because it's not down here in the monsoon trough, conditions sea surface temperature-wise and relative humidity-wise, just not overly that favorable down across this region, which would go against development. So it's kind of there's always, a double-edged sword to these type of situations. And for this being early June, or for this being late June rather, this is definitely an inside look at what could be coming for the upcoming future, certainly down the road. Taking a look closer to home here at the United States, we have a new tropical disturbance forming from an upper level low that is south of Bermuda. And this will be moving off towards the west over the next couple of days. And generally, development chances are low. On one end, you have very warm upper ocean heat content and very warm sea surface temperatures, especially closer to the Gulf Stream. And on the other end, the upper level environment is going to be relatively unfavorable. So we could maybe see a brief spin up in activity over the next couple of days. But by and large, I'm not really expecting anything significant out of this. Taking a look here at the visible satellite imagery, we notice that we have this upper level disturbance that is kind of sitting south of Bermuda, which is right here. And again, this has generated some convection. And over the next couple of days, if we can get more substantial convection to develop, these upper level lows can sometime work its way down to the surface with enough of that, surface flux, and that latent heat release from these thunderstorms that develop. That could be the catalyst to start a surface low to develop. But what we'll notice here is that, again, we don't really have a very favorable environment. In fact, here, we just really have some of the stronger winds, especially around this big Bermuda high here, that would be kind of not really favoring development. We can kind of see that we're getting some of these westerly winds here blowing to the east. That kind of represents some of that vertical wind shear. So we're not really going to be seeing anything substantial. You can also notice that storms down to the south here are getting sheared apart, and that is likely to kind of be the main theme over the next couple of days. However, if we look here at the upper ocean heat content map updated as of this morning, we notice that there is some sufficient heat content, especially in this area, and as it moves westward, this will be encountering a more favorable environment in the Gulf Stream, where water temperatures there are pretty sufficient for development, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. And again, really anywhere from these lighter blue colors onwards towards the right of the scale, you're looking at sufficient upper ocean heat content. Basically, what this measures is heat potential for tropical cyclones to take advantage of. They love to upwell cooler water as they move over a body of water. But if you have relatively sufficient upper ocean heat content, which is what the warmer colors represent, you don't get upwelling. Instead, the hurricane or whatever only begins to upwell that warmer water at depth. And that's why these upper ocean heat content values are important. Now, focusing on the main development region of the Atlantic Basin, right now our system is sitting at about 10 degrees north latitude, which is roughly in about here. And what we'll notice is that we don't really have a lot of upper ocean heat content right now. This is the 10 degrees north latitude line that is kind of located something like that. And our system is sitting roughly in about here right now. Now, upper ocean heat content values will begin to increase as this moves near the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. However, again, in the short term, 26 to, or about 24 to 36 hours, the upper ocean heat content will actually kind of wane a little bit, and you just won't get those nice sea surface temperatures like you would have down here in the monsoon trough, or in fact closer to the Lesser Antilles. And that's kind of one of the things that's going to be the main inhibiting factor, is that the sea surface temperatures across this area are just not really that warm enough for substantial development. And because of that, you probably won't get a very strong system. Real quickly, taking a look here at the water temperatures in the North Atlantic Basin here, we can see that right near Bermuda, which is right here, water temperature is sitting at about 26 Celsius. This will be moving into a relatively more favorable environment with about 28 Celsius and even some 29 Celsius off the coast there of Jacksonville. And that could help to spark a little bit of Gulf Stream magic, but we'll just have to kind of see. Again, the Gulf Stream has been very notable for aiding in tropical cyclone development and formation over the past couple of years. So could we be dealing with a little bit of Gulf Stream magic? Who knows? But we may be dealing with a system near Florida within the next couple of days, or somewhere off the coast there of Savannah or Charleston. But irregardless, this definitely does not have my greatest attention, and I think development chances will be very meager. On the other hand, this is the 850 millibar vorticity map. This is the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. For context here, these reds and whites, that's your higher cyclonic spin at your 5,000 foot level. And what we notice here is that we actually have a fairly sufficient area of spin here south of Bermuda, which is located right there. This is an upper level disturbance, but even at 850, which is only at 5,000 feet, we have a fairly decent area of vorticity and spin in the atmosphere. And this will be all moving off towards kind of the west and northwest over the next couple of days. So this could be getting close here to Jacksonville, Florida, or somewhere up here across the southeast United States coast. And again, development chances, although meager, they definitely are plausible, as again, we do have some of that background vorticity moving into a very favorable temperature environment, water temperature environment, and that upper ocean heat content does increase as it moves further towards the west. So I think development chances would be certainly there and certainly plausible with time. And if we look out here towards a wide shot here of the Atlantic Basin and parts of the Eastern Pacific, here is Hurricane Enrique over here in the Eastern Pacific Basin. And here is and for reference, that's what we want tropical systems to look like. So if you see that in the Atlantic Basin, you definitely know that we have a system there, or anywhere really. But in the Atlantic here, in the Eastern Atlantic with 95L, again, we can see that our vorticity bit is pretty strung out along this monsoon trough that's located in through here. And that's one of the reasons why development chances right now are meager. It cannot really close off as it's still located in that monsoon trough. However, this northern piece of vorticity is beginning to separate from that monsoon trough and will begin to kind of lift slowly towards the west-northwest here, or generally westward over the next couple of days. And I do think that development chances could certainly be favored in that area, especially closer to the Lesser Antilles. Again, taking a closer look here at our system, the monsoon trough is kind of located roughly in through here, and this is now kind of broken away from that and certainly has that energy and vorticity down there in the atmosphere to kind of work with. So it definitely wouldn't surprise me if something tried to get going closer to the Lesser Antilles. This is the GFS forecast, the 850 millibar vorticity. This is the 12Z run valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon. We noticed that we already have a stronger wave initialized here on the GFS forecast. And here is this tropical disturbance here highlighted by the National Hurricane Center at 2 p.m. For the southeast United States coast, south of Bermuda. And what we'll notice is that, again, the GFS ends up kind of killing this system off near the Lesser Antilles, or in the Central Maine Development Region, rather. And here's this tropical wave right now approaching the southeast coast. Now, if we kind of look here at the 200 millibar winds, this is kind of what I was talking about. Very unfavorable conditions as we have an upper level high that is sitting off the northeast coast here. And around that, you have some fairly strong easterly winds going from east to west blowing across here. And because of that, you are going to have a pretty high shear environment that is located in that area. Again, if we kind of take a look here at a vortex average sounding for this region, we notice that shear values are relatively high, especially with speed shear. And the speed in the shear definitely is one thing, but we also have some fairly dry conditions here. Only 58% relative humidity, very dry stable air aloft here, and that could be causing a problem for tropical development over the next couple of days. So for that system alone here, not really giving that much of a high chance, but Gulf Stream magic, we'll just have to see what happens. However, our system does end up picking back up some steam here with 95L by Wednesday afternoon here. This is by 2 p.m. Wednesday. We have a system now approaching the Lesser Antilles, and this does look a little bit better organized here than latest runs. We can see that on the 60 run here from the GFS, we saw basically nothing, just an open trough. And we go back here to the 0Z run from last night. Again, much of the same. And even the 18Z run from yesterday, the 2 p.m. run from yesterday, nothing. 12Z run from yesterday, same thing. So we'll have to see if this is a trend or not, but I do believe that it could potentially be a trend. Now, if we look here at the 200 millibar wind pattern in the atmosphere, we notice that we do actually have an upper level an upper level low that is kind of sitting just to the east of the system, and this could be imparting a little bit of shear on whatever system is there. Again, our system is roughly located in about there, and a vortex average sounding for that environment does locate a pretty favorable environment here for shear and a very deep relative humidity profile. So there is some potential there. However, if this does not end up closing off soon and tightening up its area of vorticity, I do believe that the Caribbean trade winds would end up kind of tearing the system apart. And that's what's indicated here on the GFS. Maybe the potential for a tropical cyclone to form somewhere down here. And if that did happen, that would be very interesting. That is for sure. But it ends up kind of dying off and moving away. Now, the European run from this afternoon, again, we can kind of take a look at that here. The European doesn't show anything really, but it does have a stronger system at hour 48 compared to what it did as yesterday's 12Z run. And just a little bit of more increased vorticity down here as it approaches the Lesser Antilles. And maybe another system to watch down here over the next couple of days. If we take a look at the precipitation here in the relative humidity in the atmosphere, again, the system is still in a relatively moist environment right now, but you can see a big trade burst that is going to be occurring. So if the system ends up getting anywhere close to, this is about 13 to 15 north here, if the system really gets into that environment, it could be dealing with a strong trade burst that occurs across here. And those trade winds could really end up ripping a system apart. And for that reason, again, development chances are probably less than about 10% once it gets closer to the Lesser Antilles. But you never say never in the world of tropics. And as for our disturbance that is kind of located near the United States and south of Bermuda, again, not really seeing much as of that right now. European ensembles, again, this is the 0Z European ensembles, not really focusing on too much here. Again, our system mainly gets killed off, and then maybe something tries to regenerate closer to the Lesser Antilles or maybe even a new wave that could be approaching within the next couple of days. So we have a lot to monitor here. Again, the main threats right now for the Lesser Antilles still undetermined, but I don't think we'll be dealing with anything that significant. All right. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.